values and purpose, um, they need to be embraced by the owner, but not created by the owner. It's really created by the entirety of the company. And it took me a while to get to there, and that was really important. And that's where I think some of these other organizations really, really helped me out to just get some clarity. And then you're in that spot and you're like, I don't even know what I'm doing. You show up for work that first day and you're like, okay, now I'm managing a team. And so how do you manage a team? Well, I started doing it the wrong way of like, well, just do what I say to do. I've perfected some of these processes, just follow what I do and you'll be okay. And then you begin to realize that people have different personalities. They operate a different way. They need recognitions different ways.
Welcome to the Growing with Purpose podcast. I'm your host, Jean Moncrieff, and we're going behind the scenes with very special leaders, learning about what shaped them into who they are in life and in business. John, welcome to the Growing with Purpose podcast. I'm really excited you're here and that we get the opportunity to do this together. So welcome on.
Yeah, me too. I've been with Small Giants for a while, and I'm very excited to be on the Growing with Purpose podcast. I mean, I listen to it all the time, and feel really lucky to be on this with you. To tell you, 5 years ago, I couldn't have imagined myself on a Growing with Purpose podcast. So thank you for having me.
Well, I love the conversation we were having. I wish we'd recorded earlier before, but we'll
Yes,
go back
right.
and dig into some of that. And I think if we visited Cherry's Industrial as part of a Chicagoland Small Giants sort of folks in Chicago get together, and you led us into Cherry's Industrial, and your team kind of peeled back the curtain for us and just showed us what a wonderful business you have. And I wanted to bring you onto the show and talk through some of the things that have influenced you as a leader over the years. But I thought maybe to start with, just kind of give everybody a sense of what Cherries is all about and what you folks do.
Yeah. So the company, we just celebrated 42 years. I think it's this week, actually. And we
Congratulations.
manufacture, thank you. We manufacture equipment. I guess the best way of describing it is ergonomic equipment that handles pallets. So we can either dispense pallets or transfer product on and off pallets. And our customers, incredibly loyal customers, but mostly Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies. We always say if you go to the grocery store and if you were to fill up your grocery carts to the top, almost all those products at one point in time have been through one of our machines, which is pretty
Wow,
remarkable
pretty
as a
remarkable.
small company, right? Right. We came across our purpose. I'm jumping ahead a little bit through Small Giants. Was really struggling with that, but because sometimes it's like, is it more outwardly or more inwardly? And so our purpose is to positively impact the lives of everyday people, which
I mean,
we
interested.
love that. Yeah.
It's brilliant. But when you said you came to it through Small Giants, was that sort of you working with your team? Was there
Well,
somebody within
so,
the community that worked with you? I can't remember.
well, I don't know. I mean, I think every company has got like a mission statement and it's up
Yeah,
on the wall, and we did it years ago. And it, I don't think anybody really felt that really truly defined who we were. Mission
got it.
statements
Yeah.
are very stuffy, and so I was working with when I first joined Small Giants, and I was in the Leadership Academy. I was like, man, we're behind. We don't have our values. We don't have our purpose done. I felt like, how are we even in business because we don't have this, right? I mean, meanwhile, we're still selling and servicing our company, our customers. And I just kept going back and forth of like, why do we show up for work every day? And
Yeah.
and so much of it was, yeah, really to positively impact the person that's right next to you. I mean, that's it. I mean, the rest of it comes from doing the right things. But I mean, that's why I showed up for work, was just to make sure that I'm, making somebody else's life much better. And I can go backwards in time and tell you a couple of stories from my beginnings at the company. But anyways, we kept working on the purpose and working on the purpose, and we had a couple of events that happened, some life-changing events for employees here, and we really struggled. And then it came to us, our leadership team and our group of team members. We said, really, it's pretty cool that a company of 20 is positively impacting these very big companies. You
Yeah.
walk into a big plant and you see people still that are handling stuff by hand. And we're like, we want every one of those employees to go home to their families and be completely whole. Then we're like, well, what about our own family here? So we're like, we really want to make sure that everybody here comes to work. And yeah, everybody has good days and bad days, but are they going back to their families whole? Meaning all their digits, but also, how are they feeling at the end of the day? And so that's really what we struck upon. And we were told before this that it just, it should be more internal. Like, no, we want it to be both internal and external. It should be the same message for both, right? That we're
Yeah.
impacting people at the office and we're impacting other people. And the everyday people is because we are everyday people. People in our company, all walks of life, you know. Everybody here who started 2 minutes in
Just
here are the emotions already, right?
yeah.
But everybody that started here, it's either a second chance or they came here because they just didn't find the right job somewhere else. And I really feel like we're everyday people.
Yeah.
We're not nothing against it, but we're not the boardroom type. We are the grinders. We are the people that just get stuff done. And I think there's a lot of other companies that we service that it's the same thing for them. It's the people that are the rank and file, the people that are really getting stuff done every day. So that's how we fell upon it.
I mean, we talk a lot about the importance of values, and uh, a moment ago you could feel the emotion talking about the Cherries family, but you put your values together in quite a unique way. If I remember, you asked each employee to
Yeah.
go home and think about their own values and write them down, and
Yeah.
you came back with everybody and aligned them. If I got it right, and I feel like you really aligned the business's values with the individual
Yeah.
values, which
Yeah. It's pretty cool. I mean, we had the same thing. We had done our values. I don't know, it was probably 10 years ago. And, we spent all sorts of money on making posters and putting them up
putting
and
them up.
distributing. And all that stuff went into a desk drawer and nobody ever really talked about it or thought about it. And it seemed very top down too. It was just like, okay, this is what John thinks our values are. So this is what our values are going to be. And again, through the help of the Leadership Academy, and I'm just going to keep calling this out because it really did happen there. I was like, and I was working with my buddy. So there's a buddy system,
Yes. Yeah.
and she had said, this is something that we did. And, like the light bulb came on. And so we did it with our leadership team first. We did post-it notes. And I said, I know this is going to seem really strange and really weird, but, everybody has values that are given to them from, at a very young age. It comes from your parents, could come from a pastor, from church, from school, a teacher, whatever. Write them down and let's put them on the board. And so we put them up on the board, and it was pretty remarkable that we were like, well, this one looks like this one, and this one looks like this one, this one looks like this one.
And kind of
And
brought
it
them
was,
together.
yeah. And so we just
Yeah.
started, putting all the post-its like, okay, these four are like this, these four are like this. And then we said, okay, this is great. And I had to get their buy-in first, and they're like, wow, this is really remarkable. And then we said, okay, let's take this to the entire company. So that was the next exercise. And so we did that. There was a little bit of back and forth of like, well, is this one really this or is it really this one? And but we narrowed it down, and then we said we also have to define what the values are. So like one of our values is elevate others. Well, just elevating others, we had to, there's more to it than that. So we worked on that, and We have a weekly huddle that we do, and we do core value recognitions at the end of every huddle.
So they're no longer on
And
the wall. They've actually been brought to life inside your huddles, inside everyday
exactly
life. And it's not just six values that are hanging on the wall or in the drawers
right.
or whatever anymore.
Yeah, and we not only this took us a while to figure this
Yeah.
out, but it's not only the nomination. So we have a point system. So if somebody nominates somebody, they get points, and it goes towards spin the wheel. But we also realized the gratitude side is just as important, which was really very interesting. I think at first people were like, I don't want to be recognized. And I think really people really appreciate gratitude more than they would admit. So the gratitude side, even for me, was really remarkable of just being able to accept it, take it in.
Yeah.
Um, it actually it makes you feel good when you actually let it happen. But this all happened over a period of years. But it's really great that people understand our values. We try and hire for values, and we fire for values. So that makes it easier as well.
I think you made such a good point there about gratitude. We're not all brought up with realizing how to accept gratitude or to take that
Yes.
gratitude. And that sounds like something that you folks have been able to do very well. So,
Yeah. I'm telling you, at the
yeah.
very beginning, they're like, oh, there was, I mean,
Yeah.
really, it was like, oh God, not again. And now people will take gratitude and they'll say thank you for that. And it really has become a big deal.
So stepping back a bit,
Yeah.
you come from a Catholic Irish family, right? From what influence?
Yeah.
You were talking earlier about coaches, I think, and folks in your life.
Yeah.
What's influenced your leadership over the
Yeah.
years?
Well, I'll go backwards a little bit. So yeah, I'm Irish Italian. When I'm seven, I'm the oldest boy in the family, and in my family, my dad owned a newspaper agency. So you hear of newspaper delivery boys.
Yes,
I mean, that's what my dad
that's
had.
what it was. Okay, so he
The
organized all
agency,
the
and
delivery folks and
he had all the
got the
delivery
newspaper.
all
Yeah,
the delivery people for him. And so I started working for my dad when I was 8 years old, and some of my siblings as well. So at a very, very young age, we were working weekends. And so we had the shift that was like from 3 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock in the morning. So imagine that as an 8-year-old. And then when I turned 16, I became the weekend manager. And so really kind of a young age, I knew how to manage people. My parents were entrepreneurs. I don't know if I really ever thought that I would be an entrepreneur, but I guess there must be some bloodline, some genetics in there. Um, I went away to college, a couple of jobs that just didn't work, and ended up at Cherry's Industrial in '94. And it's a longer story, but I came in as a junior salesperson, kind of like an assistant to one of the salespeople, and worked my way up through the organization. In 2005, I did a leverage buyout to buy out the founder, and in 2011, I bought the partner out, and so I'm the sole owner. But I mean, I didn't have a ton of influences through there, so I probably had maybe 4 or 5 bosses along the way, and
yeah.
and one being my dad, which is never good. Um, Absolutely, I love the man, respected him, but there's a dynamic with sons and dads. And then Bud, who founded Cherries, was a mentor for me. But he ran the business a little differently than I would run the business today. I mean, he cared for people deeply. He wanted people to succeed. Um,
But more
but
the
it's
command and
of a
control types approach
yeah,
to what we've got
exactly.
these days, right?
But I mean,
Yeah.
that's the environment that he grew up in. So I mean that made sense that he was going to do that. Um, and I would say along the way, as I kind of moved up through the organization, I mean, I remember moments. There was one time where there was a salesperson that was working next to me, and really he was really going to screw up the deal and probably screw up his employment there. And I stepped in, and I wasn't a manager at that point in time, and somebody said to me, like, why are you getting involved? And I said, look, I just really care about this person, and I always thought it shouldn't be like a zero sum sort of thing.
Yeah.
Everybody should win, not just one person win and then the other person loses. And so that thought just, that's probably instilled from my parents. But that thought always stayed with me. And then there was another moment, as I kind of got a chance to look behind the curtain, the Great Wizard of Oz. I got to see behind the curtain, and Bud, showed me the financials for the company, and was looking at the income statement, and it was like a moment where it was like, well, we don't really want to talk about that. And at that point in time, I was the sales manager, and the conversation came around to, well, we just have this marketing fee that's built into that. And I said, well, why is that in there? And he said, well, it's just we don't want the salespeople to make too much money. And
Okay.
and
So
again,
this was
it's not a
got
right
it.
or a wrong, but it just felt a little uncomfortable for me of just, like, well, salespeople like to be compensated, they follow the money. But even at that point in time, I think people should know where we're at,
Yeah.
and I think that's again where that kind of helped me younger in life, where I got to hear the conversations that my parents had. And some of them were good, and a lot of them weren't good because we were seven kids. There wasn't a lot of money. Sometimes they were living paycheck to paycheck, but we got to learn about money at a very young age.
So
So I would say those were a lot of the influences that I had. Some coaches along the way, but really my parents and some other business leaders.
and your family was quite big in sport, swimming, particular,
Yeah.
um, bit of baseball, I guess. I
Yeah,
was wondering
swimming was
whether
really
it's played
was
into
really
your
the thing.
leadership at all.
Yeah, we were all competitive swimmers. So all seven of us swam. A lot of us were state meet swimmers. So, some of us went away and swam in college. So that was part of it. I mean, we had that we're very a highly competitive family. Um, I would say we're all very driven, and the results have come. I would say all of my family members are very successful. Um, but that was just, we didn't
Yeah.
know any difference. If you're in a big family, it's just, you don't really tend to look outside the walls. It's just, this is what it is, and this is what you have to do. And it's just part of being a Costello at that point in time. I mean,
And
later
kind of
on in,
growing up that way. Those were the
yeah,
guidelines, and that's not,
yeah.
yeah, the way.
I think
Yeah.
later on in life, my wife said, "You guys weren't normal," and I said, "We thought we were normal, so that's what we lived through, right?" It's all perspective at that point in time.
It's such a good point. It is all perspective, and some of us have sort of a broader perspective. And I think as a business owner, CEO, founder of a business, to be able to kind of widen out that perspective and take in different sort of inputs, digest them, decide what's relevant or not,
Yeah.
is important. Is that something that kind of came to later on, moving away from that Costello perspective as you kind of got into sales and started working in
Yeah.
the business?
Well, yeah. I mean, I would say from a leadership standpoint, and I still say this to today is, yeah, I think every step along the way, I did what I was supposed to do. I excelled at what I was supposed to do, and then somebody recognized it
Got
and
it.
said, "Okay, we're going to move him up into another spot." And then you're in that spot, and you're like, "I don't even know what I'm doing." You show up for work that first day, and you're like, "Okay, now I'm managing a team." And so, how do you manage a team? Well, I started doing it the wrong way of like, well, just do what I say to do. I've perfected some of these processes, just follow what I do and you'll be okay. And then you begin to realize that people have different personalities. They operate a
Mm.
different way. They need recognitions different ways, and so that's still a challenge. I don't, it's kind of like being a parent. You don't know what it's like to be a parent until you're a parent. You don't know what it's like to be a leader until you're a leader.
Yeah, and you can read as many books as you want to read. You can sort of look at it, as many parents out there and how they do things, you're going to ultimately land up doing it your way, I suppose. And
Right,
yeah,
right. And so, for me, and then just getting thrown into the spot of being an owner, which is again just a different thing. Yeah, the perspective changes. I mean, Bud would always say, you don't know what it's like to be an owner until you have to make payroll. And I
yeah,
didn't know what that meant until I was in that spot, right? And so now you're thinking about how do you support these other families? And you can't do all the work yourself. You've got to support other people around you. But, how do you motivate people and how do you get them to care? And that was the other part of the story that I got to. And I got to it maybe very late in life is as the owner, I really began to feel like so isolated from the rest of the company. So think about it. You're part of the team. Now you're managing a team. Now you're completely outside the team, right? It's hard to show up. You don't want to be somebody's best friend, but you still want to be there for
you still
them.
want to be part of that team, right? Yeah,
Yeah, right,
because it's
right.
lonely at the top. Yeah,
It is, and people want to treat the owner differently, and the owner doesn't
yeah.
want to get treated differently. And then you're just never sure what to share with people. And so that was a big struggle too. I mean, through some of these leverage buyouts, we were bleeding money, and people didn't
And
know
there were
it.
two
Yeah,
of you involved in the leverage buyout. So Bud
yeah,
had come to you and said, John, I'm sort of keen to sell the business. Are you
yeah,
interested? And
yeah.
this is
Right.
John and the
His
person
his
who brought you
nephew.
in, his nephew,
Yeah,
right?
right.
And you had to
Exactly.
go 50-50 in the end, if
Yeah,
memory. There was an
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. That was a tough dynamic. I mean, going backwards in time, if there was a time machine, I would say, but keep 2%. Just so you could be the referee. Yeah, but I don't know
Okay,
if you would have done that. So
so
it
you
so
go
it,
through this acquisition, and there's two of you who
yeah,
come out on the other end, this leverage acquisition,
yeah, yeah, and
and
it was very tough.
it's not all roses. It's,
Yeah, that's the other thing that you don't realize is that, I mean, the company can only follow one path, one vision, and there was two completely different visions for the company. But think about that. I mean, who are they going to follow? So you had these factions. I'm going to follow him. I'm going to follow John. Every day was a battle, and then, you know, I,
I'm
I
curious, were your leadership styles very different? Were you who was the CEO? Who was sort of president? How did you
Yeah,
set
so
that
he
up?
was he was president. I was CEO, and
Gotcha. Okay.
yeah, we were both salespeople. So it was tough to kind of divide up and say, okay, your sandbox is over here, my sandbox is over there. His style, I would say, fairly toxic.
Okay.
Wasn't really good at handing out compliments. Really kind of believed in almost a zero sum. Where I wouldn't say he would stick out his foot to trip somebody, but there was moments that it felt like that. Uh, a couple of events where I won't go into detail, but people were about to quit, and John would have to come in and save the day and just keep them there. And I said that there was moments where it's like whoever yelled the loudest won and got heard. That is
Yeah.
miserable living through that. I mean, nobody wants to do that.
No.
And there was a
I
couple of
mean,
months when that happened, and the employees are seeing this, and you can only
yeah.
imagine they're like, these guys are either going to do something harmful to each other, or the company's going to fold, or something in between, and they had no idea what it was going to be.
We were talking earlier about emotions and um, how your emotions can go sort of swing in different directions. I imagine that must have been a very difficult period for you because you've
Yeah,
probably got two pretty volatile people. How,
yes.
how did you deal with that at the time, and how long did it go on for?
Well, I mean, we probably went maybe 5 years working through this, and then one day he came to me, or I came to him, and I said, like I really think it would be healthy for you and for the business for you to take a leave of absence. Maybe we came upon this at the same time. He had some other challenges in his life, and So he did a 6 month leave of absence, and it was probably the best thing for both of us. I mean, the company at that point in time, we were struggling, um, but there was a little bit of a stabilization because people saw the vision of one person.
Yeah.
Um, he got healthy. Um, there were some other challenges, but when he came back from the leave of absence, I sat him down and I said, we just can't continue this way. So we either need to you buy me out or I buy you out. We hire attorneys or we shut this thing down. And it was a very emotional day for both of us. And he
In
said,
hindsight, do you think you should have made that decision sooner?
yeah,
Because
but you don't know.
yeah,
That buyout of the founder. I mean, we wanted to give it a go. I mean, we wanted to
yeah.
see how it would be without him and how we could run it. And
Were you two pretty tight at the start? Was it kind of we can do this, let's get off and do it, but and only afterwards discovered that your leadership styles were or
I
vision
think
for the
it.
business was
I
different?
think it's like and thank goodness this isn't a reflection of my personal life, but I think sometimes people go into relationships and they think, well, the
Mm,
person's going to change, and there was no way it was going to change. I thought maybe he'd soften up, maybe he thought that I was going to change, but it just created more and more friction,
yeah,
and and along those lines, it was also I really started to feel bad for the employees that were there. I mean, they were beginning to suffer. I can only imagine how toxic it was for them to see that. The two owners fighting, not in closed corners, behind doors. This was right out in the public, shouting matches. I mean, they can only have been like, oh my God, going home, driving home, talking to their significant other saying, this is a disaster. And so I was living through this, and as one of the owners, and so yeah, probably maybe 5 years was too long, but it just happened to happen at the right time that he got better, the company got better, and then we just had to work through the details of the buyout, and which was another story altogether because it wasn't a number that was a reasonable number, but it was really the best thing in hindsight for the company and for everybody.
so you come through this this sort of second acquisition almost in your
Yeah,
life where you now own the company in totality. And having visited you and spent time with you, I know that some of the things that have become pretty big in the business are things like Great Game of Business,
yeah, yeah,
um, EOS. You've mentioned working with small giants.
yeah.
Where are you as you kind of look at that vision coming in? Had you already started to think about making a difference in people's lives in terms of the purpose?
Yeah.
And I think it's important to say that when we were walking through your facility, I seem to recall you saying something about if anything ever went wrong with the machine, you would shut the business down. You care so deeply about your employees, so deeply about your customers that these these pieces of machinery that are kind of managing pallets and moving pallets around in some of the biggest pharma and food companies in the world, you're really about making the difference to people's lives, but
Yeah.
protecting them and keeping them safe. So is
Yeah.
this purpose bubbling away inside you right back then, or
Well, I think, back in the 5 years with my partner, I mean, I struggled with some things and I was talking to a lot of people and I was a pariah at parties because they were like, John, you need a therapist, a business therapist, somebody, right? But, I think finally what ended up happening is when I was the sole owner, I think it all starts with you. You begin to look in
yeah,
the mirror and then I was like, all right, stop complaining.
this kind of self awareness? It's
Yeah,
fingers are pointing at me.
you have the chance now. So all these
Yeah,
things that you had talked about that were holding you back for all those years, it's just now up to you. Which was maybe good and bad because then I'm thinking, well, how do I execute this? How do I do this? And then realizing that was really the bad approach. Values and purpose. Um, they need to be embraced by the owner, but not created by the owner. It's
mm,
really created by the
love it.
entirety of the company.
Yeah,
And And it took me a while to get to there, and that was really important. And that's where I think some of these other organizations really, really helped me out to just get some clarity. I knew it was deep down inside. It was somewhere in there from the very beginning that I knew that was part of who I was. I just didn't know how to express it. And maybe there's other business owners out there that are feeling the same way of like, well, how do I express this? I really want to be this person. I really want the company to be this. How do you get to be there and not to just be continually just running the organization? And yeah, my leadership team would say there was plenty of moments where I would come back from a conference or from this, and they're like, "John, not one more crazy thing." And I'd be like, "Okay, I promise you, it's all good, but I want you to see what I'm seeing and just understand that this is really what we all believe in, and how do we get to that spot? I'm not doing this just to make life harder. It's to get to a spot where we all understand this is really what we care about."
And I think part of that is fear, right? You hear about the ideas of purpose and values and all of those good things, but in the thick of it, it's just, God, how do I keep this business going? How do I keep the business alive? How do I deal with the next fire that I'm having to deal with? And taking that step toward being a more sort of purposeful business, a more values led business, isn't something that's easy. I'm curious. Did you struggle with that step and thinking, well, is the soft
Oh,
stuff going to work, or
I definitely did. So, I mean, just think about it. I cut my teeth as a salesperson. And so as a salesperson, what are the two most important things? Your customers and what you sell, right? I mean,
yeah,
that everything begins and ends there. Now somebody tells you that it's not necessarily what you're producing, it's who you have around you. It's the organization that you're building. It's the softer side of the business. Well, I mean, that's completely different.
yeah,
I
you got to
mean,
kind of zip the two up together, right? There's a harder side and the softer side, and how do
yeah,
you bring
yeah.
them together?
But we were just
Yeah,
always focused on the harder side, of just saying, well, like you could just throw in another body there, you could do this, not thinking about, well, really, how do we build this organization so, people are in the right seat, they're doing something that they love. We didn't really think about that. We were always focused on how do we get more of these widgets out the door, what do we do to make sure that the customer is happy? Those were really the most important things. I'm still saying it's important to business, but I would say really the most important thing in our business today is the people that work here. I mean,
yeah.
no doubt about it. I mean, um, good things will happen if you have the right people, and good things will happen if you have people in a chair and they really enjoy what they're doing. I mean, um, that was probably the hardest thing for me to get my arms around. I think the emotional side, the heart side of it understood it. The brain didn't understand it. The brain was like,
It was kind of this anchor that you do we
yeah,
really have to
right,
do
exactly.
this?
Yeah. I mean, again, 30 years in the business and
Yeah.
20 of them, doing it a certain way. It's hard to just from muscle memory just to change it over.
You
So
came in what in the late 90s, was it 94? Or was the
94.
biz
Yeah.
so,
So the business started in
30
'83. So it was, 11 years old when I started. And so, yeah, 32 years now. Um,
and you
31
took over
years.
completely 2011,
It
was
was
it?
like 2011.
Lemon.
There was still some seller financing in place. So let's
Yeah.
say it was 2013. So yeah, I've been on my own for about 11 years.
And the business has gone from sort of a few million in revenue to
Yeah.
close to 20, I guess.
We're gonna we always hover around 15 million in
15.
US
Okay.
dollars. Yeah, right. Right. Yeah, so we're doing good. I mean, it's I would say the thing that we're probably really most proud of is, especially over the past couple of years, is really how the culture has changed. We have some people that were around back in 11, and they just, I guess it's really good that you no longer have to talk about how bad the past was, and everybody that comes in, I don't think they really care about it. They only know the company as it stands today, which is good. I mean, I don't want them ever to know how bad things were. I just want them to see how good things are today. And how do we just keep making it better?
Yeah. I mean, when you think about your journey from kind of where you started to where you are right now, what's maybe been the biggest internal shift that's helped you to lead with more purpose and peace in a way?
Um, I think the if I could share one thing with other business owners is just
Yeah.
this idea of just letting go. I mean, it's the hardest thing, whether you're a founder or you bought the company, you still feel like you've got to do all these things and it all passes through you. So that's the first thing. The second thing
Like
is,
step back, find the right people,
yeah, right,
coach them
right,
to do
right.
what they need to do, find the best people to do the
Right.
job.
Right.
Yeah. Step
Let
out.
them execute. The second thing is to let people know that you don't have all the answers. And that's really a hard thing for a business owner to admit to.
But
To be humble enough to say, I'm not sure. I don't know. Let's harness the wisdom of the group here.
yeah.
We have that happen more and more every day. I mean, I'm still really in awe when maybe a new employee or somebody that comes in and it's just a brilliant idea and you're just like never would have thought about that in a million years. So just fresh eyes into the organization. And I guess the third thing is that um, there's some really good tools out there that I mean, whether you're reading business books, but peer groups I think are really good. That was really powerful for me. Some training. If you're talking to small, medium-sized businesses, and if it's family owned or whatever, they probably went through the same path that I did. It got passed down to them. Somebody told them how to manage or showed them how to manage, but they probably never learned any of this stuff. Even if you went to business school, I'm
Yeah.
telling you, all the stuff that I've learned, I guarantee they are not showing this in business school. And I couldn't imagine.
You're good.
Sorry,
All good.
I
I think
just couldn't
that's
imagine.
beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. Just couldn't imagine.
I just couldn't imagine the company being any different. We had an employee that worked here, and she left. It was a niece of mine, and she went on to bigger and better things. And she had said something. She's like, hey, when I go out in the business, when I go out in the world, am I going to find other companies
Mm,
doing what you're doing? And I said, I don't know. It's a
yeah.
pretty small, it's a pretty small group of people that really are purpose driven. I said, you could probably be successful, but you're not going to see transparency. You're not going to see processes. You're not going to see purpose driven leaders. I said, that's pretty rare. I said, I wish that there were more of them out there. And this was her first job out of college. So you can only imagine the next job she goes to, it's going to be like, wow, they're not sharing their financials. They're not, doing an L10 meeting. They're not, talking about values and purpose. But I
But you
wish
know
there
the
were more.
difference that you're making there? One would almost hope that she goes into the next round of interviews saying, well, how do you
Yes.
run your meetings? Are you driven by values? And I'm not sure that
Yeah,
my values fit with this because this is the
right,
important part of small business, isn't it? That we
right,
have got the
right,
opportunity to shape the future.
right.
It's why I love Small Giants so much, is because I think of my children and I think of them going into beautiful companies like yours and having that
Yeah,
opportunity to work in great places.
yeah.
And it's just, we
It's
can make that
interesting.
difference.
You bring up your kids, and I mean this was a number of years ago, and I'll just share the story because it's pretty powerful. It
Yeah.
was like one of those days where I was just having just a bad day. Got home from work, and either one or both of my daughters were complaining about a company that delivers to your door, right? And how the owner was making too much money, and I was like, oh my gosh, am I just going to let this pass? And we had one of those conversations. I think we were up till midnight, and I really don't talk that much about business, at home, just on purpose. And maybe I should speak up more. And I started to describe how the companies run, what we do. And it was really kind of remarkable for them. They were like,
Yeah,
so capitalism isn't bad? And I said, no, capitalism can be great. It depends on how it's run. I said, as a business owner, yes, we want to maximize profits, but it's really for the collective of all of us. We want to make sure that everybody's in a better spot. And I
yeah,
started talking about, well, this is how we run the business. And it was really a remarkable thing where they kind of walked out of this thinking, well, maybe that's the sort of company that I would want to work for. Maybe this is the sort of movement that should be out there in the industry. Because all they're hearing about is these big companies that are laying people off and the CEOs are making this. And I said, there's so many of these other companies out there that feel differently. And I said, I get a chance to see these companies and hang out with
yeah,
these companies. And I said, some of these are my really good friends because when you go to see them, it could be a year between conferences. The second that you see them that they're operating the same way that you are. It's a whole different level.
yeah.
And I wish there were more people that would just take that step and understand this is how they were built. This is how they should act and just take that step of just saying, well, it's going to be really hard. It is much harder to run a company this way. I mean, it really is. In the beginning, it's easier once you get some
Once
traction.
you kind of get that traction, that, but
Yeah,
it's more fulfilling,
exactly.
right? I mean,
It
it's not
is.
as, yeah, it's different. Yeah, one of the things I think I heard either in an interview with you or somewhere along the way that I really loved was how you still swim, I think, and how when you swim, it helps to wash the emotions away or something along those lines. I can't remember exactly how you
Yeah,
put it, but I just thought that was lovely, John. Yeah, when we were talking about a bit about finding balance and those kind of things
yeah.
earlier. But
Well,
I
it's it's
really
it's it's
liked
really
that.
funny because I've told people this before, and then I had to kind of correct, and I said, they were talking about relieving stress and, what do you do? And I said, well, I just put my head in the water. And so then I had to follow it up with saying, it's not in a bathtub, it's actually in a pool, right? And I'm
It erases the
swimming, right?
emotions.
So, they just had to understand that portion of it. But yeah, you're right. There's uh, you have to balance yourself and not try and bring those troubles home. And
Yeah,
um, I would say I've gotten a lot better. I mean, there's certain things that still, but I sleep very well. My wife would say that I still probably ramble on the way home from work, but then once I'm at home, I don't do that anymore, and it's probably not fair to her. But um, and I think it's only because the company has gotten better, and we're
yeah,
really pushing things down for other people to solve. It's really hard if
yeah,
you come to work and you're asked to solve all of life's problems. It's far better if there's this push from everybody else. Then it's also, it can confirm that that you're doing the right things.
And it
But yeah,
took you a
I,
while.
I do swim. Yeah, it took me a while to get there.
Well, to build a good leadership team. I mean, I think when we started, you said you went through some challenges with the leadership team, and you've had a. I mean, I don't know how long ago that was, but you've had to
No,
intentionally build your leadership team and make it easier to, or not
I
that it's
think
much
it's a
easier to run the business, but with more ease.
it's a tougher hire. So
Yeah,
you have leaders that you bring up through within the organization, and then we had to bring in some people from outside the organization. I think that was a challenge for us because we started with values. Are there value alignments? And so we thought, well, what we've done in the past with other team members is hire for values, teach and train the rest, make sure they're in the right seat. And I think what we found with the leadership team is there still has to be an aptitude. I mean, you still have to know what you're doing. You
yeah,
still has to be a right fit. And we hired some people that came from bigger companies, and maybe there were too many steps removed. They were
yeah.
managing a team that was managed by somebody else, and they weren't
Had a
really
whole lot of
fitting.
people. Yeah,
Yeah. and they didn't maybe they were good tactically, but I mean, they weren't really developing people within the organization, which is so important here. Is if you're doing the work but not you're not developing the bench, that was a problem. And then we had some dysfunctions, in our leadership team. And we read the Five Dysfunctions, which is a very, very powerful book. Absolutely love that. And we didn't realize we were almost being too pleasant with each other, which you know nobody told you that it was okay. Don't use emotional words, but it's okay to get in a room and talk about it, and how are we going
Yeah.
to solve it, and there has to be alignment when everybody walks out. And if we're all giving a thumbs up, it's a thumbs up. You're not walking out saying, well, I was forced
Thumbs
into
up,
that.
but yeah,
Yeah, it blew
fully in.
up. And so, right. And we have a
Yeah,
lot of that happening. And so we just realized that we made mistakes, and we let those people go, and we're finding better people to do it.
love it. Um, quick few questions then. So, who's a
Yeah.
leader that you look up to, John? Is anybody you really look up to as a leader who's influenced you?
Um, Boy, that's a tough question. Um, can we come back around to that? I want to I want to I want to think about that one, because I would say that there's probably some people. Well, I guess I can answer that. I'd say there's a number of people that I've met through Small Giants and through the Great Game of Business that I completely respect, and maybe they feel the same way about me, but I just feel like they just have their stuff together. I mean,
Yeah,
maybe they're the duck on the pond, but they seem to just you know know naturally how to do these things. So um,
you're right.
uh,
Both those communities, there's some great leaders.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Tom Walters. I mean, I don't
yeah,
want to name names because there's so
but
many people out there, but I'm always usually in awe of those people. Of just like, wow, I want to be them one day.
yeah. And I mean, Tom had to get so vulnerable as well and step back. And
Yeah, yeah,
there's, yeah, very similar story there. How
yeah.
about a book that's influenced your leadership? Something I know we just talked about Patrick Lencioni and Five Dysfunction as a team, but anything else?
I mean, Good to Great was probably the first one that I
Yeah.
read, and I was just like, oh my God, that was the one. I was like,
And you can keep going back to it, right? And learn something new
oh my
every time.
God, yeah, definitely. I always refer back to that. There's so many other books that I've read
Yeah.
along the way, but I would say that was one. If people have heard me talk about the Great Game of Business, I mean that was definitely me living through these buyouts. That 100% reflected with me. Um, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm at a loss. There's so many other ones out there, but I would definitely
But
say
that
Good to Great was probably the one.
Good to Great was brilliant. I agree with you.
Yeah, yeah.
How about just kind of winding down and is there a favorite movie, TV show that you kind of unwind to, aside from the swimming to wash off the emotions, but something you enjoy?
I don't know.
All-time favorite?
Me and my wife, we just, whatever the latest series that's out, we do that. I don't know. For me to wind down is pretty hard. We have a lake house, and when we go away there,
Nice.
um, my wife always says, most people that have a lake house, will get there and they'll put out a chair and kick their feet up and just look at the lake. And for me, I'm doing projects, and she's like, that doesn't seem like relaxing. And I said, it's just busy work. That actually, it does calm my mind doing things that maybe are not work related, where I feel like I'm accomplishing something, I'm finishing something. I see the final product.
Kind
People
of
have
tying the
reminded
knot
me, they're
off.
like,
Like,
yeah.
yeah,
I mean, they're reminding me that, like, John, what you're building is really remarkable, and you do have a finished product, but sometimes it's hard seeing it.
yeah. I mean, I've seen it. You folks have built something remarkable there. It's really brilliant.
Thank you.
But I suppose that, yeah, as you say, you're getting to the lake house and just kind of almost breathing out and then kind of winding off a few loose ends. there's some satisfaction in that, right? Like,
Oh yeah,
okay,
yeah, there
job
really
done.
is. Yeah, it's a little bit of a joke, but we when we crossed from Illinois into Indiana into Michigan, because the lake house is in Michigan, there's a sign that says pure Michigan. And I say this to my wife every single time. I'm like, breathe it in. And so we actually do. I mean, we cross the border, we see the sign, and we take a deep breath. I just started out as a
Love it.
joke, but it
It's
definitely,
brilliant.
you know that we're there. Yeah.
What's something most people don't know about you? You think about the community, or folks who do you know you. What's something we don't know about you?
Um, Boy, I don't know. I mean, I have a lot of stuff out there. I mean, most people are surprised that I'm swimming competitively.
You're
Um,
still swimming competitively?
yeah, yeah.
Okay,
So yeah, so I swim. There's a state meet and there's a national meet, and so it's by age group. And so um, typically for states, I'm usually a top six, in my age group, and then nationally, probably top 12. You only get medals for top 10, and so that's my goal, is to be top 10 in the country nationally for swimming. That would be amazing. Boy, I don't know. I don't know what else, what other surprises. I guess the only other thing to share with you is one of my dream vacations, and my wife is going to kill me for saying this, is I want to do a swim vacation where you actually swim from destination to destination.
nice. Yeah,
Yeah, I think to me that would just be
that'd be
awesome.
brilliant. I
And
love it.
it's like,
Somewhere like Hawaii or something, or where you go
so
from
you can do
one island to
Hawaii.
the other. Or,
Yeah, my
yeah,
sister did Greece, and so you're like they drop you off. You swim between like 5 and 7 miles a day, and she's like, it's just
brilliant.
you with the group. Yeah, I'm like, that to me would just be just, I know. I just have to schedule it and do it.
Wash off all the emotions.
Yeah.
it's,
I
it's
think
like,
people are just like, why would you want to have your head in the water, for a vacation? So I think that's usually the biggest surprise, but to me that would be amazing.
brilliant. Well, John, I mean, things that I'm kind of taking away is I loved how you talked about core values and how the team came together to shape the core values. And it's not about the owner, it's about the people in the organization, the employees coming together to shape those core values and the purpose of the business. And I think that's so important. I think nowadays more than ever, just aligning personal core values with the company core values just makes both parties infinitely more powerful, and I think brings down burnout as well. So
Yeah.
I really enjoyed how you spoke about that. I think the other thing is there's so many companies in the community, like yours, that stand out as just this beacon for other companies to kind of follow, of how things can be done. And we were talking about our children and what an amazing company looks like to work in. And I think that's just phenomenal. And then the other thing, I love this idea of kind of how you head out to the cabin, and as you take that breath going in Michigan and breathe, but tying things off a little bit, and the almost sort of sense of being purposeful about getting stuff done as you kind of go
Yeah.
into a bit of a break. So I've really
Yeah.
appreciated having you on the show, and thank you so much, John.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. This was great. I'm so glad that I got a chance to do this. As
Brilliant.
like I said, my previous self couldn't imagine doing a Growing with Purpose podcast. No, really, this was amazing.
And thanks for listening to this episode of the Growing with Purpose podcast. If you're enjoying the show, then please give us a rating on Apple or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And to learn more about purpose-driven leadership, go over to smallgiants.org or follow us on social media. Until next time.